Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here. My name is Ali Babu, and I'm pleased to be one of the co-hosts and guest hosts for the inaugural Amazon Tool League's Open Forum. And really a big part of what we're doing here today is unprecedented. It hasn't happened before. It's an industry first. And we have David Zimmerman to thank, and he's going to be coming on here shortly. But really, the Open Forum is all about being able to bring and foster open dialogue and discussions with other players and platform providers in the space to talk about their tools, to give you a peek behind the curtain, to hear from the people who are building these solutions. And I'm super excited, super thankful for Mr. David Zimmerman, who will be joining us shortly, momentarily here. Always some fun internet issues along the way. But let me actually bring the rest of our guests to the stage here as well, and get us underway here. And so right now we've got the five of us. David will be joining us as well. He is the founder of the Amazon Tool Leagues. I'm going to kick us off with some introductions for those that don't know the people in the room. But we got Melissa Burdick, Pacvue's co-founder and president, an Amazon industry titan, revolutionizing marketplace advertising for so many years that I can count. Melissa, super happy to have you here. We got Ann Harrell, Pacvue's head of product evangelism and enablement, with a decade of driving innovation in digital and retail media from the Pacvue side as well. And you're a champ. Thanks for joining us. From the Trellis side, we've got Krishna Vemulapalli. He is Trellis's co-founder, chief product officer, a trailblazing e-commerce product innovator for the last 15 years. And last but not least, Mr. Luke McGinnis, Trellis's chief revenue officer, from launching sponsored products at Amazon, turning to go-to-market leader. And Luke has actually had the privilege of working at both Pacvue and Trellis. And yes, privilege is the word I will use for it. And there we go. We got Mr. David Zimmerman back here as well. David, how are you?
I'm great. I'm a bit stressed out because my internet is, causing me some issues here, but I'm on the phone now, so I should be here.
Okay. Well, it's at the end of the day, David, your work has spoken volumes. Oh, wow. We're all set. What is a live stream without some technical difficulties?
Exactly. Oh man. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, you're all good. I think the interesting part, and we'll have like a bit of an open discussion here while David gets sorted out here. But we as providers, and everyone around here, and brands and agencies, everyone looks at the sheet, right? Like it's been around for about 3 years now. David spent about 250 hours putting these things together and evaluating all the different providers and different tools. At the end of the day, I think that looking at this from a third-party, neutral, objective point of view is super powerful, and really also helps us and helps tool providers and everyone be better too, right? And see how we kind of stack up. Melissa, talk to me about your thoughts. Talk to me about your thoughts around the sheet and how you've kind of seen it change over time as well. You've been in the space for ages.
Yeah, well, I just remember when it first came out, and I actually have to thank you, David, because it was right when we were going through our acquisition process. So I would say being in the number one spot in 2020 was helpful at the time for people to kind of get a whole kind of objective view of the market. And I think you rated about 40, 50 tools. And so winning that number one spot in 2020 was pretty awesome. And then amazing that 2024, we come around and we've won that same spot again, which I think is a testament to our product and engineering folks at Pacvue, because we're always trying to stay ahead and be innovative. But yeah, so it's really a privilege to be here with all of you, because there's the names on that sheet have changed through time, and Trellis is one of the ones that has won their spot too. So excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it was a real pity you didn't have an affiliate program back then, and still don't.
Yeah, that would have been a nice lead gen for you.
Next time, maybe.
And so then, and David, why don't we actually take that and tell us about why did you start the Tools League? What was the precipice behind it?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm just a competitive guy. I love everything about sports and competition. But the main reason, and the guys from Pacvue might not like that too much, is that I just didn't like the attention Helium 10 was getting, because they had the best affiliate program and everybody on YouTube was going crazy about them. And they do have a great tool. They are probably arguably the best all-in-one tool, but they were simply not the best at PPC and not the best at certain specific areas. And so I just wanted to kind of bring some counter content in there, bring some truthfulness, I guess. And yeah, that was pretty much the main motivation back then.
Yeah. And then makes sense, right? Like you wanted, and tell me about like, so you started it from that standpoint. You wanted to kind of like rank everyone and kind of give visibility there. But like, it's kind of evolved, right? Like it's been 3 years of this sheet. How often do you update it? How often do you update it? What's made you continue doing it?
I mean, first of all, Amazon Ads keeps me, working on the sheet all the time because new features coming all the time. Then we have new tools coming in. So, there's always the need to see who's actually, improving, which new guys are bringing in completely new features that I hadn't thought of before. And how do I kind of incorporate that feature into my overview? Is it maybe covered in some existing feature in some other way? So yeah, pretty much constantly I have to redo columns, which is honestly sometimes a bit of a pain because you have to send a copy of the sheet to every tool provider. And yeah, it's a struggle.
Well, you put a lot of time and effort into it, right? And I think that the brands, agencies, people who look at this sheet, they find a lot of value in it. Being able to see every single tool, seeing the different ways you look at the categorization. And so, what do you look for then, right? Like when you're going through this evaluation, you said you change up the categories there, you change up the different columns every time. What do you look for when you're evaluating softwares?
I mean, I look for what everybody's looking for, solutions that help me in my daily Amazon Ads service management, which is, mainly bid management, how to automate that, how to make it easier with bulk features. Then, of course, we have things like analytics, the basics of everything. You need to understand what's going on. You need to have an overview of not just PPC data, but other data, and combining that in smart ways to really understand what's going on. And, things like bulk campaign creation. There's all sorts of things I'm looking for. Yeah. And then obviously I have to somehow keep tabs of who does it in what way. And it's all relative and it keeps on changing. Some people might have a super in bulk campaign creation, but the next year they only have a yes, which is like half of that. And because somebody else came in and made it even more super. So I always have to compare it to what everybody else is offering.
That's interesting, and then it becomes down to like it's relative, I guess, right? So it's like it's arguably a zero-sum game, right, where everything kind of adds up back to one, and that's a tough position to be in. But then understanding that and knowing that now, if you were like, how do you provide kind of context to the sheet, right? Like it is complex. There's a lot of different columns. If you're a brand or an agency and you have this sheet, how would you tell them to read it? How would you tell them to look at it, evaluate it? What are your tips there in terms of working with this sheet and then ultimately selecting the right partner?
Yeah, so I guess you just need to know what you already have covered, maybe with other third-party software that you're using. Maybe they already have some PPC analytics covered, for example, in Sellerboard. Or you want to know, what features in the Amazon Ads console you are, actively using, you like to use, you find easy to use. And then you see what else do I not have? What else do I need? And that's where the columns come in, and you can actually use the sheet and give points to the columns in the way you want to, and basically find out who offers these features that you still need and who offers them how well. And then you see the ranking.
So kind of fill in the gap in your tech stack, right? Like it's like where this is what I'm doing well. These are the things I'm doing well at. These are the things where I might need some support on, and the columns help kind of solve for where the areas are you support. But look for a provider that actually helps in the areas that you may not be as good at. And I think that's an interesting perspective to take. And so I know a lot of people find value in the sheet. I know a lot of people have signed up for your courses along the way there as well. But why don't we actually take that similar conversation towards, like, you've seen the sheet evolve over time, right? You said you've added different categories in. How have you seen the players on the sheet? So the rows, forget the irrespective of the columns. How have you seen, like, over time, like you mentioned, Pacvue was number one a few years ago when you started, number one again today. Like I know Trellis, Trellis the same thing, right? Where lower down on the list, number 2 today. How have you seen the evolution of companies, and as they keep innovating and building, translate into the sheet over time?
I mean, it's exciting to see who is actually continuing to work on it and not just, being satisfied with their position, I guess, or being satisfied with what they have. And yeah, it's nice to see Pacvue kind of being the constant in the PPC edition of the overview, just sticking to the top every single year, it seems. And then it's also exciting to see who else is coming up and who is kind of falling down, of course. And yeah, I don't want to name those tools, but yeah, it's always interesting to see.
Yeah.
To see players like Trellis, to see players like who else came in, maybe Pacvue, a couple of others coming in through the years, and challenging the top ones like Pacvue and keeping, I guess, Pacvue, on taps to keep on working.
So, and that's an interesting point, right? Like it's new players coming in all the time, other ones dropping off, and maybe Melissa, I'll actually throw it to you at this point. Talk to me about how you've kind of seen the market evolve, right? Why do you think some of these providers are dropping off or dropping away or rising up for that matter too?
Yeah, I'd say, the market has maintained a high amount of competition once Amazon kind of democratized the space with their API. Unlike other retailers, Amazon kind of gives their API to a lot of people. And so it's kind of fairly easy to get the API and to create tools. So the moat isn't so big. And so we've seen a lot of people kind of hop into the industry. We've seen a lot of consolidation, and we've also seen a lot of M&A. We're obviously part of that M&A story where we merged with Helium 10 2 years ago, but which I guess is the reason why you started Tools League, which is kind of full circle and ironic. But there's been a lot of companies have gotten a lot of money. So there's been money flowing into the space. Stackline got money from Goldman. Essential bought Perpetua. Omnicom just bought Flywheel. So like there's just a lot emerging. And to answer your question about why do some tools not make it, I think that people underestimate the amount of development work it takes to work on the Amazon API, and just the amount of like things that they launch is a lot. And then the other thing that we focused on is you can't just regurgitate the information from Amazon and build a tool. You have to build innovation on top of it and add your value. So we always focus on where Amazon is zigging, we want to zag. And in a lot of ways, we see one of our biggest competitors is Amazon itself, because they continue to launch more and more automations, more and more features. And that makes us really have to innovate faster and innovate in a way that brands want to pay for us and agencies. The last thing that I think is unique about Pacvue than others is that we really went this omni-channel route. Some people stayed the Amazon route and they were just an Amazon tool. And that's where, as Amazon's innovations become better and better, maybe you can just use Amazon. But because we service the omni-channel market where it's Amazon, Walmart, Instacart, we sit on top of over 100 retailers. We sit on this fragmentation story where people can just go to one platform, Pacvue, and they can activate everywhere, and we can power them that way.
Yeah, and that's actually super interesting. I think that to your point, the evolution kind of as Amazon changes, but then the landscape as a whole changes, right? How do we look at marketplaces as an aggregate? And Luke, you were part of the early days of the Amazon side. I know Melissa, so are you as well. And I'll throw to you here as well. What do you think about the space? How have you seen it evolve from being on the trenches of building what sponsored products is today to working at Pacvue, working at Trellis? Talk to us about what you've seen and what you've witnessed over this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, even at, when Amazon sponsored products first started out from like the years 2013 to probably roughly about 2018, there was no tools really outside of a few players in the space. Like Amazon had no internal tools. We developed internal Excel macros and stuff. But then once I got synced up with Melissa, she showed me her platform, and basically she brought to life all of the Excel macros that were internal at Amazon. And it was really cool to see a tool that was built by Amazonians for brands on Amazon. And the Pacvue tool really continued to innovate in that regard, especially in the early years. One of the things I was most proud of at Pacvue while I was there was the fact that Pacvue listened to their clients, right? They listened to their brands. They had a direct line of communication to all the way up to Jiawei, who was one of the founders as well, right? And so they were constantly listening to what sellers wanted and built those features for them versus building the features that people thought they want. And I think that's really what helped Pacvue get to that top spot originally. And then Pacvue continued to innovate there. And the reason I was brought over to Trellis, and the reason that I really liked Trellis was they do the same thing, right? It's that same communication. We talk to our brands. We ask our brands what do you want? And then we build it for them instead of, I think a lot of these tool providers out there in the space, they go through these mergers and acquisitions. They go through these things and they end up having to build features that investors want, or people that don't have their ear to the grounds, or that aren't on the street, right? And I think a big thing that I like about Trellis and Pacvue is that, right? They, especially Trellis nowadays, and it's just listening to what the clients want and building those features and continuing to innovate. And I think that's why you're seeing these type of tools on the top of that PPC sheet. And I got to give credit to Dave here. I mean, he helped make my career in a way. When he launched his tool, I was probably a year into Pacvue, and it was great and I was doing well. But when he launched his tool, it became my whole selling point. Like, it was a part of every one of my outbound emails. It was a part of every demo. I was like, look, don't take my word for it. Take this guy's word for it. I've never even met this guy. Look what he's saying about us. And, having that third party kind of be able to hype you up, it breaks down that barrier and it gives you kind of some instant credibility, regardless of who it is. Right. And I think that, so Dave, this thing you've been doing over year has really helped me out. And I really want to thank you for it. It's super thorough. And I'm glad you're sharing it with the industry. It's very helpful because it teaches me about what our competitors are doing. It teaches me how to innovate, where to skate to. And it gives me, you make my job a lot easier. I'll tell you that. And it's really helped me in my career. So if anyone's on this call, I would highly suggest checking it out. Check out his YouTube channel. See who's innovating, who's doing what. Because I think what's kind of happened too is there are a lot of new tools in the space, but in my opinion, a lot of those tools are kind of playing copycat away. They're just building features that have already been out for 5 years, right? And so Trellis and Pacvue both been out since 2018, 2019, and a lot of the stuff that people are building now, they've already had, and so they've worked out those bugs and tweaks, and are continuing to innovate on new features and new things that brands want, instead of just putting out stuff that's already been, playing that kind of mirror copycat game. So David, I really appreciate the tool and everything you've done.
It's an interesting segue. I'm kind of curious now. Like, where do we actually see the market going then, right? Like, we know where we got to today, where it's playing, where everyone's playing today, new entrants coming in, and I'll pick on what you said there.
Yeah, I think Melissa said it best there, and I think the biggest competitor we all need to worry about is Amazon, right? Like, if we aren't continuing to innovate new features and staying on top of the API and bringing new things to market, Amazon's just going to gobble that up. You're seeing it now. Like, Amazon has rule-based features. They have all sorts of internal things that brands can use. So if you're a tool in this space and you're not innovating in a really creative and high functioning way, Amazon is just going to gobble you up, and you're going to become irrelevant unless you work with really small brands or something like that. So I think the industry is going to continue to go into a full innovation. The AI piece is what everyone's talking about. I think you got to really pay attention to that, even though people are sure getting AI fatigue. I have it, but I wouldn't worry about getting the AI fatigue. I would take it very seriously and start to, there's Gen AI betas out there on Amazon right now. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So if you don't continue to innovate with where the industry is going, you're going to get left behind. And that's going to be with that AI function. You got to work with it and stop trying to fight it, in my opinion.
And Christian, I'll throw to you to kind of, if you have a path here, if you have a perspective on this as well. And so to build off of, I think, Luke, you're going with AI's here. It ain't going anywhere.
I think maybe I'll start off by really thanking David. I have participated in this program twice with David, and I know there are 130 columns, and I remember doing 3 sessions of 2 hours each. And I can only imagine David going through that with 50 different tools. Hats off to you. That's a lot of effort. The second thing I want to say, Melissa, your contribution to this industry is unbelievable, and I'm humbled and impressed by what you bring to our industry. So thank you very much. I think I'm slightly different, I guess. I was never at Amazon. I was not in the advertising space, but I was in the e-commerce analytics world. About 10 years ago, I started the journey on helping big retail brands implement pricing optimizations and pricing intelligence. We were helping the largest brands do digital shelf analysis. This was before digital shelf in some ways was even a word. And for us to successfully build that at Numerator, we needed to really bring, in those days, what was cutting edge AI implementations, whether that was natural language processing, whether that was machine learning. And what we were seeing was, as we were doing that work over the 4 or 5 year period, the AI tool chain itself was evolving. It was starting to become cost effective to deploy AI at scale, and which was the opportunity we saw to build Trellis and bring some of the AI and machine learning techniques to the Amazon advertising world and whatnot. And I only see that journey. I think Luke and Melissa both hinted at it. I see that journey only going forward, whether that's because of ChatGPT, Gen AI, the ability for even a brand of any size to take an image and suddenly turn it into a lifestyle image or turn it into video. We are talking about productivity gains that are unparalleled to the past even 10 years ago. And one can make the argument that we are moving from e-commerce to algorithmic commerce to a certain degree. How that plays out over the next 4 or 5 years will be very interesting.
That's an interesting statement there as a whole, right? Like the evolution of e-commerce to algorithmic commerce. I think everyone kind of touched on that to some extent, right? How AI is playing a role. There's so much data. There's so many data signals coming in. At the end of the day, how do you actually action those as a person, right? And maybe that's an interesting perspective, Christian, on the algorithmic commerce side. Definitely getting me thinking on that front as well, and I'm sure everyone else is thinking it too. Let's actually jump into it, into the sheet now. I'm going to throw it to you, David. Talk us through it. Talk us through some of these categories, where Pacvue excelled, where Trellis excelled. But take us away, good sir.
Yeah, maybe starting with the bad news that I cannot share the sheet right now on screen.
Oh, good. Let's talk to it. People can get the sheet.
But the good news is that I can put it up on video later on it, because I know how to do that with my editing software. So the guys watching live won't see it, but the guys watching later will see it. And yeah, let's start with the first category, maybe that I always look at: automated bids management. And that is where Trellis really excelled, in one of the categories that they excel. So maybe, Krishna, you want to talk about how you differentiate yourselves in that whole automated bids management to other tools?
I think to a certain degree, it comes down to maybe we were at the right place at the right time. We were always AI first company, partially driven by the co-founders who built AI algorithms from telecom systems to product matching, image matching systems. And we could probably talk for hours about how do you bring that AI to bid management, but I want to maybe simplify the conversation down to 4 things, right? If you look at bids, impressions, click-through rates, and conversion rates, they're all there to serve a certain advertising purpose. And the advertising purpose they're really serving is brands have certain objectives, whether those objectives are around launching new products, whether those objectives are around growing their category or driving more margin. You have to somehow figure out, how do you look at those 4 signals? And there are many, many, many more signals, but even simplifying it to those 4 signals, how do you look at those to achieve your advertising objective? And when we look at that problem, we really think about, from basic principles up, it really comes down to, what does the relationship between bids and impressions look like? And if you were to plot that out, it's really an S curve. And what I mean by that is, at the lower end of the bids, you're probably not getting any impressions. But as you start to increase your bids, your impressions start to ramp up, and you hit a saturation when you're at top of search, right? That's well known to all of us. If you are in the DSP world of Amazon, you even see it on their console and whatnot. The question then becomes, where in that curve should I live, and what are the implications of that? And what we fundamentally believe is, once you look at the click-through rates and conversion rates, and the position on the curve where you want to live really defines how much you're going to pay to advertise and how effective that advertisement is going to be. So in the Trellis world, then the problem simply became, how do we build those models at scale? we have billions of bids that we manage any given night, which means we have billions of these models that we are constantly updating using AI based on signals that may be coming from what's happening on a marketplace, seasonality, day of the week, day of the month. Any and all of those signals are updating these models every day. And once we are able to keep those models up to date, we are able to make the right kind of bidding choices, which are correlated to the advertisers' fundamental objectives around product launch growth and what have you. Now, no AI is perfect. Mistakes do happen, and you need guardrails and the kill switches. So to enable that, we do allow a pipeline where you can put guardrails using rules on top of AI if you so choose. So that's kind of the approach we took to solving or automating the bid management on Amazon and Walmart-like channels. And luckily, our customers seem to be happy and able to reach their objectives.
Very nice. So actually, one thing I also wrote down in the past was your focus on being able to push a whole category of products, or being able to optimize the whole set of products in one category. So if people are competing, for the same search terms, that's kind of one thing where you excel as well.
Yeah,
remember that.
I think right from day one thing we realized was, and we see it on Amazon. You have, anytime a brand is even uploading their products on Amazon, they are having to adhere to the Amazon's categorization and whatnot. But most brands do not necessarily see their business through the lens of Amazon categories. So from very early days, we allow brands to categorize their product within our system. And I think Pacvue does that through tags and what have you. But it allows us to now have a perspective on how is a collection of products working together in terms of tacos, what search terms they're working well for, and being able to drive further optimization using those techniques.
Nice. All right. So one big next section that I would like to look at is the whole topic of automation setup and automation options, right? So most goals let you set, for example, an ACOS on campaign level, but I think Pacvue takes it a bit further. Maybe you want to talk about that, Melissa, or Anne?
Yeah, of course. I think before we talk about Pacvue's automation suite, it's important to understand that one of Pacvue's founding principles is pretty simple, right? It's to make our customers' life easier. But that simple statement is quite complex when you take into account the range of customer types we have. We work from brands direct to agencies across a number of verticals. They all have very complex goals and complex workflows. So we have to build an entire suite of automation in order to accommodate these different workflows. And some of the examples of our automation, obviously we have AI layers, right? We have campaign AI, which essentially automates everything from budgets to bids to keyword harvesting and targeting harvesting based on a complex goal that the customer can set. This can be anything from increasing sales, increasing efficiency, and finding more reach. And that's almost like the automation easy route, right? You don't have to set up all of the different layers. But a lot of the folks we work with want the more complex option. They want to have levers that they control, and they really want to be in the weeds about how their automation runs. And so for those folks, we have automated rules and our budget manager, which essentially allow you to layer parameters, and then we'll take actions based on when those parameters are met. So an example can be layering efficiency with the sales quota, layering efficiency with the spend limit, allowing yourself to have guardrails in place while still enabling teams to not have to go in and do manual work all the time, because this allows you to be more competitive, more dynamic, while still reaching complex account goals. So you don't have to limit yourself from a goal perspective in order to use automation at Pacvue.
Very nice. So one thing I also wrote down from one of our demos is that you manage the budget as well via your goals. Yeah. And you're able to kind of pace the budgets, especially for bigger brands and bigger corporate companies, to get those budget goals. Yeah.
Yeah, and our budget manager is actually, Krishna mentioned this, so thank you for that call out. You can base it based on tags. So you're allowed to segment your campaigns and your ASINs with tagging. So you can have different groups based on categories, subcategories, verticals, tactics, and then you can have your budget optimized on that level so that you're making sure you're pacing towards the categories and tactics that work best for you, while still retaining a level of control on what those categories are and how they're defined. So that works with our budget manager and our automated rules. And it's essentially a really hands-on setup for a really hands-off dynamic approach after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely love the tagging part, which also reminds me of your tagging rules feature, which is by the way one of the features that made everybody else that had tags, made them kind of demoted to a okay or a yes, because you had the super score with your tagging rules, where it's just a dream that basically automatically creates the tags based on the campaign names, as far as I remember. So that was like 2 years ago. Maybe you've improved it since then.
It's full circle, right? We created rules based on tags, and then we created rules that create tags. So we want to make sure that you can automate across the board, and it all kind of feeds into one another. But it's a prime example of us not really ever sitting still. I really like something that you said earlier, David, about never being satisfied. And that's something that we definitely agree with at Pacvue. Just because we released automated rules and tagging doesn't mean we're going to stop there. And so we're constantly kind of evolving, not just the pieces of the puzzle, but how they fit together.
Nice. So the first section that I wanted to talk about today was PPC bid automation based on external factors. That is, of course, something that Amazon will probably still struggle for a while to really compete with software. So I'm glad to see Trellis, for example, really excelling here. Maybe Luke or Krishna, you want to talk about that, how you're excelling?
I can, I mean, you made the decision on excelling, so I'll speak to maybe more how we do it and why we got there. I think it was, again, some of these things are part of the founder's paranoia. I think everybody said it. Amazon is going to probably, today you can do rules engines on Amazon, what have you. We always saw Amazon demand side as 4 things that have to be done well for a brand to excel on Amazon. You have to do advertising well, you have to do your pricing right, you got to do the right promotions and right content. If you do those 4 things well, from the demand side of things, at least you have controls on what can happen. So, and because we had the background in pricing intelligence and digital shelf and what have you, we always had a line of sight on bringing those external signals in. But we started the journey with the advertising management and what have you. So some of those insights allowed us to not only integrate a digital shelf-like offering in our platform, but also bring in retail signals, which allowed us to understand what is, if I bring in a shopper into my brand, how much money is that shopper spending with me? And if those answers are right, the advertising optimization one can do is very different than if I'm just looking at an ACOS or a TACOS or what have you. So those were, if my sell-through rates are not where I want them to be, having the right kind of leaning in and leaning out on pricing and on advertising to right size my sell-through rate, those are some things a brand needs to do well to be profitable, and then feeding that back into the advertising algorithms.
Perfect. So one of the columns that I have here is like visibility. Of course, you want to automate your bids based on your organic visibility, perhaps also paid visibility. You want to talk about that? What are you offering?
Yeah, so I think, as I said earlier, the digital shelf aspect, one of the things we do is measuring your share of voice against any given search term and what have you. What that allows us to then do is making the right type of choices in terms of top of search multiplier and what have you, when I find myself in the right space organically and what have you.
Cool. Yeah, another thing I wrote down for your inventory level automation is you not only change the bids of PPC based on inventory levels fluctuating, but also pricing. Is that right?
Correct. And we even take it further, David. If you think about there are a couple of ways a brand can work with Amazon, whether that's FBA, FBM. But more often than not, we find situations where the data sets we may be getting from Amazon may not be up to date. If I have some products still on a ship, so we allow brands to upload their inventory statuses into the system, and then we are trying to optimize the sell-through rates to make sure that stock out events don't happen, overstock events don't happen, and that to the extent possible that you are priced right, and if you are understocked, you are able to use pricing as a way to drive more margin while giving yourself some more time for the inventory to come in.
Perfect. Yeah, so that brings me to the fourth section we wanted to talk about, fourth and last section, which is the advanced analytics part. And of course, every tool should have the basics as well, basic analytics, but that's where the danger is, of course, bigger, where that Amazon will catch up sooner or later. But we also want some advanced analytics, right? And that's where Pacvue excels, I would say. So maybe Anne or Melissa, you want to talk about some of those things?
Yeah, of course. I think earlier we talked about automation and how it allows folks that use the Pacvue product to have really dynamic and robust programs. But when you have really large accounts that you're managing, measurement becomes quite difficult. And pulling insights out of reporting that's available becomes even more difficult. So we aim to answer the question, how do channels work together? Let me see a 360 view and then double tap from there, as opposed to seeing all these kind of disparate reports. And so we have a few key examples of how we've done that. And this is one of the areas I'd say we're growing the quickest, because there's a large appetite in the industry for more measurement, more analytics. One key example where I think we have really shown in this area is our AMC solution. So we were one of first to market with AMC because we saw the value immediately. It's a data clean room solution for those of you who don't know, and it essentially allows you to look at event and user level data across all of your Amazon channels, which is just insane because we've never had that level of granularity before. The one limitation of AMC is because it is so dense and technical, it actually requires the user to know SQL in order to query for the data in the native console. So we created templatized analytics and audiences based on AMC data, where we essentially do the querying for you. And the reason we did this is because we really wanted to democratize AMC for our users so that they didn't have to go to their data analytics team, assuming they had one, which not everyone does, in order to pull out these insights. And then it could be easily automated and tied back into action, right? Because we don't want insights that live in a silo. We want it to be actionable immediately. So some of the key ways that we've built around AMC, you can look at things like path to purchase, both organic and paid. You can look at multi-touch attribution models. You can build lookalike audiences either on Amazon's data, or you can upload your first-party data and build lookalike audiences on that. So there's a lot of advanced use cases, and we're continuing to build out more and more because, as I said before, we're never really satisfied. We're always moving forward, and AMC is a key example of that. I think another key example that's actually really new, so you guys are getting the inside scoop, is our incrementality solution. We launched this, like 2-3 weeks ago. And this is essentially our answer for how do we accurately measure the impact of media? For a very long time, we've all just relied on the attribution models that the retailers provide. And those are normally last touch. And I think everyone here can agree that that's not fully accurate and it's not encompassing the full picture. But there's a really large obstacle in getting the full picture because we don't have that attribution directly from the retailer, and we don't always have complete data sets. So what we've developed is a model that is multiple layers, and it pulls from multiple different data sources: our advertising API, our share of voice data, AMC data, organic traffic and trends, so that we can get a really complete picture of your Amazon ecosystem. And then we produce models and estimates on what your iROAS is, your incremental ROAS, for each level of your Amazon program. So you can see it across channels, across your brands, and across your ad types, as well as looking on the campaign tag level, so that you have a more comprehensive understanding of what's truly driving incremental sales and not just last touch ROAS. So those are just a few key examples. But like I said, this is a big area for us. And I think everyone here can agree that measurement is one of the places that you really can't rest on your laurels. You have to keep moving because customers are getting more advanced. And as they get advanced, their tech needs to be advanced as well.
Amazing. I'm not sure if you can hear my annoying sound in the background, so maybe Ali will have to take over again. But maybe just a quick question to Melissa. What do you think is the secret sauce to building the best PPC tool? You should know because you've been at the top for a long time now.
I think that our mantra at Pacvue that came from Joey, our brains of the product, is 2 words, and it was always innovation and execution. And you need both. You have to innovate and you have to execute it. I think the other thing that Luke mentioned earlier was just that super fast feedback loop from customers of being able to say, I want this, and then having it quickly be in your tool and having a very fast feedback loop around it. The other is having domain experts on your team, like Anne, like, all the great people on the team that kind of contribute towards the product. And knowing what the customers will find useful and what they'll pay for is kind of another critical one. So it's kind of the other piece where it's like zigging, where Amazon is zagging. You need to add value on top of what the retailer is providing to prove you're innovative and that your people want to pay for it.
Yeah. I thought Jawei's 2 words were hire Luke. I've been mistaken for 4 years. Sorry, team.
That's what I understood from Melissa.
We can't stop Luke, Melissa, no matter what. We just can't.
He just came up with it like that too. That was
Just like that. Just like
I think he
that.
was waiting to drop that little nugget there. So actually, let's Krishna, I'll throw to you for the same similar question.
I think Melissa touched on all of them. I think it's customer first. That's, if I were to pick 2 words, it's customer first. That's why I think some of us are still here and our companies are here, because it's customer first.
Yeah, and
And
not
team,
the
and
words that
team.
Luke gave you.
And the team, right? You can't do anything if you don't have the right team around you.
Yeah, and I think like that's like you both are echoing similar sentiments in terms of building good products and building good products for people, right? Like at the end of the day, we build all this and everyone builds for people first, right? And enabling their organizations, enabling their success, and so. It is very refreshing to hear that from both of you around the customer first, the people that we're servicing first. And to the points made earlier, it's part of the reason that the top of the list there. But why don't we actually say, well, based on the conversations we've had with people, I know, Anne, you just came back from grocery shop as well. What's next? What's upcoming here? Where in the world is Pacvue going to continue servicing their people?
This is actually great timing because we're in the middle of finalizing our 2025 roadmap. So I can give you some sneak peeks, some major themes we're building around. Something I said about Q4 is just recently in a meeting right before this is we're not wrapping up, we're revving up. We're building on the momentum that we've built throughout this year. So a few key examples. I think, today we're talking largely about Amazon, but most of our customers use us for a broader range of retail media suites. And so we're really looking at how do we consolidate and how do we make sure that people are getting a 360 view, not just on Amazon, but across their entire ecosystem. So we're building a lot in the way of advanced analytics that is looking across retailers and that's pulling in from multiple places while still enhancing the capabilities we have for Amazon. Another key example that we're continuing to build on at the end of this year and going into 2025 is something we're calling open integration. I really liked what you said earlier, Krishna, about having bid models that are based on more than just advertising data. And we are 100% aligned with that. We also realize that a lot of our customers have a source of truth that they trust for things like digital shelf or, other measurement. And so we're actually finding ways to bring that into our activation platform so that people can activate on that and they can build a strategy around the data sources that they trust the most. So it's really about building more dynamic tools and layering on top of what we already have within our ecosystem.
Sounds pretty cool. I feel like you're about to make David create a whole new category on the sheet.
Happy to work with you on that one.
Krishna, I'll throw to you as well. Chief Product Officer, talk to us about the vision. Talk about what's upcoming.
I think we recently launched the ability to stream your audience from your D2C stores straight into Amazon AMC. So we are very aligned, Dan, in terms of the value of measurement, building of lookalike audience, automating that process, what have you. But I think I genuinely believe that we are in inning one of where AI and the productivity gains that it will enable. And we think we are very uniquely positioned to bring that to what we call the 4 P's of demand generation and how those pieces interact together. And we are going to continue to innovate on that front.
Very cool. Very cool. What was the line you said earlier? Algorithmic commerce. I am going to poke you about that after. That's a statement and a half. Well, I'll give a bit of an open forum here. If there are any questions from anyone, I think Melissa, you've actually answered a couple along the way here. Abe's got not a question, but a comment. Most magnificent bulk file tool ever. And there too. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in while we're doing that. And if there are any other ones, open floor here, right? Like I know David, you're kicking back into gear here. It seems like too, but open floor in terms of any about Amazon, about the space, about where we are, about we all play together, and how the fact that we're all having this conversation and doing more conversations like this. Let's go with, and hopefully we will. But general statements, parting words, parting thoughts, and open ended here.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
yeah.
So I was just going to say, like, I think it, these tools, both these tools, and a lot of tools in our space, they all have a lot of really great features. A lot of us play really well in the sandbox together. Obviously, I have a high respect for Pacvue and stuff, but for the brands and agencies and the buyers on this call, I think it boils down to is look outside of just the features that a tool has, right? Look at their relationships they have within the industry. Look at the relationships they have within Amazon. Look at the support that they can offer as well. I think, a lot of these tools are really complex, ours included, and you need to be able to have that level of support and hands-on support from that tool as well. Pacvue is really good at this as well. So if you're shopping for tools, don't just look at features. Look at the personnel and the support level you're going to get from that, because you can't just be throw the keys to a Ferrari and say, hey, don't go crash it, right? Like if I was throwing those keys when I was 16 without going through driver's ed, I'd still crash it today. Don't get me wrong. But for the more mature people in the industry, really you need that support before you get handed those keys. And I think Trellis and Pacvue both offer really, really detailed and really big support systems to their customer bases. So I think that's another thing you really need to look at is dive deeper into that, the level of support.
Yeah, absolutely. David, I'll throw to you. I know you were jumping in there earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree. And, I find it absolutely fascinating how this whole industry is so connected and likes each other. I just can't imagine any other industry being like that. I haven't been in another industry, but it seems difficult to imagine. So, I guess that's congratulations to all of us.
You are the glue that's bringing us together for this one. So more than anything, David, thank you.
No, but there's a question in the chat too, guys, about how important are actual images for PPC, and can poor imagery with good PPC really work?
I can jump in on
that
one.
Yeah, please take it.
So images are extremely important. Imagine buying something in store that had just black packaging, right? You wouldn't know what it is, even if it's a great product, even if it's positioned well on the shelf. Think of the image as the packaging for your product. That being said, obviously PPC is another large component of the bigger picture. You probably could have poor imagery and, spend a lot on PPC and see some growth, but over time that's going to diminish. You have to have all of the pieces of the puzzle working together, which is why we try really hard at Pacvue to give you all those pieces in one place, because it can be really hard to optimize if you don't know where to look. So very important. Make sure that your images are optimized. Make sure that they're representing your brand and your product well. And make sure you're not just spending money to boost up a product that has, low content scores and low ratings overall.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm bang on. And on top of that, take some of those ad dollars and put it on getting good imagery. It's critical to your click-through rates. You should fix it.
Yeah.
And be sure to check out John Aspinall on LinkedIn, because he has the greatest CTR tips and image tips.
Agreed.
Yeah. I feel like he came entirely just to get his own name called out to this.
Hey, John.
Yeah, good to see you, John. Always nice to have you in the audience here with us. But that being said, if there are no more questions, which it seems like there are none, David, how do we get in touch with, how do we get the sheet? How do people get the sheet? What's the path there?
I'm just trying to get on my screen.
Oh, you're on mute there.
Into the end.
Oh,
Yeah.
David, sorry, you were on mute. Say that again.
he's back.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'm on the screen now as well. I could share my screen because I actually promised on LinkedIn to show the scoring system that I usually never show. If you want to quickly do that, just a couple of minutes maybe.
Yeah. Well, if people are getting a peek behind the curtain as to the scoring system here, David, I think that they're going to be pretty happy to see that.
Yeah. So you should be able to select it. Yes, exactly. So yeah, this is the adds to Seller Central scoring system, basically looking at features that Seller Central is not covering or not covering very well. And yeah, not teasing you at all. So you can already see Pacvue at the top, Trellis is second. And let me just scroll down a little bit for you. But yeah, I just wanted to show that really quickly because it is what I promised on LinkedIn. And basically, yeah, just to remind you what it is about.
So the scoring system is all about
optimization. Yeah,
Sorry,
so here these things like bulk optimization that you can already do in the ads console is not getting a lot of points. The factor here is, just the one, the smallest. But obviously things like automation getting more points. I don't want to get into too much detail, but just so you see the scoring here. I'm not going to show that ever again on YouTube because it is usually only for my members of my Amazon Ads course, Amazon Ads scaling system. So yeah, you definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, and so I think that everyone at the end of the day, where we can go to here, I believe this is it, courses.ddzim.me. He's known as David Zimmerman, also known as DDZim PPC. Follow him, hit him up on YouTube as well. But to get sheet access, hit up the courses.ddzim.me as well. If you do want to get in touch with Trellis or Pacvue, websites are here as well. You can find all of us on LinkedIn. I think that every single person on this call will happily have a conversation with anyone as well. So any questions, anyone that was a little shy to ask something, feel free to jump in there as well. But ultimately, where we are, we're kind of at the end here. And David, I do want to thank you for the effort you put into pulling these sheets off and to consistently update them and how you do it. And so it's a testament to you and your efforts from starting last 3 years ago to today that actually got us all in this room together. Right. And so thank you, David. Thank you for doing that for brands. Thank you for doing it for agencies. And the amount of people and brands and agencies that I know that leverage your sheet, use your sheet, and actually look at it as kind of the Bible of the tool providers. It's a big part of the evaluation and the creation of a tech stack for themselves. So on behalf of everyone, thank you as well.
Appreciate it.
And Melissa and Luke, Krishna, thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being open towards the dialogue around the technologies, where we're headed, where the platforms are going, but more than anything, sharing your insights and experience and expertise along the way. And so thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And for everyone else, enjoy the rest of the day. I'm going to slowly plug David here a little bit. There will be another open forum. He will figure it out, but continue, stay tuned, and stay tuned for the open forum. Thank you for joining us for the first one. Thank you for making this such a fun time, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.